Hi friends, it's Miss Michelle again. In this video, I'm going to read to you the story of Noah, and I'm going to read to you about Joseph. Okay, the story of Noah. Adam and Eve had Cain. Cain had children. His children had children, and their children had children. The earth became full of people. Sadly, most of them forgot about God and did bad things. This filled his heart with pain. God was so sad about it that he had to stop it. He wanted to make the world better. There was one man in all the world who walked with God. His name was Noah. God told him, "Noah, build an ark and pack it with enough food for you and your family, and for the male and female animals I will send your way. Then enter the boat, all of you." Noah did what God said, and the animals came in pairs, lions and lambs, butterflies and horses, bluebirds and bears, foxes and elephants. There's Noah. Just as God had told Noah, it began to rain. First, just a little. Then big raindrops pounded the earth. Hundreds of raindrops. Thousands, millions, billions, trillions. There was so much water that the ground started to flood, and Noah's ark, which carried Noah, his family, and every kind of animal in the world, started to float. Before long, the whole earth was covered with water. God's flood destroyed the bad things and washed them all away. Yet everyone and everything in the ark were safe and sound because Noah did what God said. After 40 days and 40 nights, the rain stopped. The sun came out. Slowly the water went down. God's boat came to rest on top of a tall mountain. Noah sent out a dove to look around. It had no place to land, so it came back to the ark. Noah waited 7 days and then sent it out again. It returned with a fresh olive leaf in its beak. "The flood is over," Noah shouted. "Trees are growing again." To celebrate the world's new beginning, God hung a rainbow in the sky. "I will never again use a flood to destroy the earth," God said. "This rainbow is my promise to all of my people." God knew that bad things would happen again, but he already had another plan. One day he would send his son Jesus to save his children from evil. Jesus calling. "The Lord will cover you with his feathers. He will shelter you with his wings. His faithful promises are your armor and protection." "Trust me, my child, and don't be afraid. I take care of my children. Just as a mother bird covers her babies with her wings to protect them, I cover you with promises of my love. When you see a rainbow in the sky, remember my loving care of Noah's family. Then think about how much I love you." Joseph the Dreamer. Joseph was one of Jacob's 13 children. Joseph's older brothers disliked him because he tattled. Do y'all ever tattle on your brothers and sisters? I think that's just something that happens when you have siblings. Poor Joseph. They disliked him even more when their father gave Joseph a colorful new robe. They really disliked him when Joseph said, "I had a dream. We were tying bundles of grain, and your bundles bowed down to mine, like I was your king." "Our king?" his brothers wailed. "No way." "I had another dream," Joseph said. "The sun, moon, and stars bowed down to me." One day, Joseph went to check on his brothers in the fields. When they saw him, they said, "We'll get rid of that dreamer who thinks he's so great." Then they grabbed Joseph and threw him into a well. Later, a group of traders came along riding on camels. "Where are you going?" the brothers asked. "To Egypt," the men said. So Joseph's brothers sold him to the traders. "We'll mess up Joseph's new robe and tell Dad that a wild animal killed him," the brothers decided. And that's what they did. The traders sold Joseph as a slave to the captain of the king's guard, a man named Potiphar. With God's favor, Joseph did well at his work. He grew strong and handsome, so handsome that Potiphar's wife fell in love with him. "Come with me," she said. "No," Joseph cried, "that would be wrong. You are married." From then on, Joseph tried to stay away from her. Potiphar's wife felt angry because Joseph didn't obey her command. When no one was watching, she took Joseph's coat. Then she brought it to her husband. "Look, Joseph came to me to shame me," she lied. So Potiphar threw Joseph into the king's prison. But God was with Joseph. Soon Joseph was put in charge of all the prisoners and all the prison work. Jesus calling. Even if you should suffer for what is right, you are blessed. Do not fear what they fear. Do not be frightened. Sometimes in this world you will have to suffer for doing the right thing, as Joseph did. Do not be afraid even then, for I am always with you. Call on me, and I will comfort you. I can bring good even out of the bad things other people do. God understands our dreams. While Joseph was in prison, God allowed him to understand dreams too. The king's wine taster got into trouble and was put in prison. The man asked Joseph to explain a dream. Joseph said, "Your dream means that you will get out of prison in 3 days. When that happens, ask the king if he will let me out too." Joseph was right. The man was set free. But he forgot to tell the king about Joseph. Until 2 years later, the king of Egypt had a dream, and he asked the wine taster to explain it. I cannot," the man said, "but I remember a young man from prison who can." So the king sent for Joseph, and Joseph explained his dream. "Amazing," the king said. "The Spirit of God is in this man." Then the king set Joseph free. In fact, he was so impressed that he put Joseph in charge of the whole land of Egypt. A great famine spread through the land. No one could find food. Back in Canaan, Joseph's family was starving. "We're so hungry," they wailed. By then, Joseph was governor of Egypt, and Egypt had lots of grain stored up because of his wise leadership. People came from all over to get some. Joseph's brothers came too. Not knowing what had become of Joseph, they didn't recognize him when they bowed to him. He was all grown up. But Joseph knew them. "Oh, Governor, sir, may we please have some grain?" they asked. After all those years, Joseph's brothers were before him and did not even know who he was. "Are they still the mean brothers who sold me into slavery?" Joseph wondered. He questioned and tested them many times to see if they had changed. They had. Finally, Joseph cried, "I am your brother Joseph." They were shocked and speechless. They'd been so cruel those many years ago, and now Joseph was a mighty and powerful ruler. What would happen to them now? They didn't need to worry. Joseph forgave them. Though the brothers' plan was for evil, to harm Joseph, God had turned it into good. Because Joseph was in Egypt and in charge of storing up food, God made sure Joseph's whole family was saved from the famine. They all moved to Egypt, and when Jacob arrived, Joseph came to greet him and threw his arms around his father. They wept tears of joy because God had brought them together again. Put up with each other and forgive anyone who does you wrong, just as Christ has forgiven you. Life is not always fair. When people do things that hurt you, I want you to forgive them, remembering that I always forgive you. I had to pay a very big price so I could forgive you and others who trust me as Savior. When you forgive someone who has hurt you, this makes me happy. it will make you happy too. The end.